Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 standard decks that we expect to see at Worlds. If you guys are a World finalist playing in the standard format, this is the video for you. These are the 5 decks you need to test against and make sure that you know the matchup for whatever deck that you're bringing to Worlds, because these 5 decks will be the most represented at Worlds. If you guys need any coaching for Vanguard for the next upcoming season for Springfest, my Metafy link is in the bottom right hand corner. Link is in the description as well. Feel free to book and we can start getting you prepared for the Springfest season. The first deck that is probably the most represented deck at Worlds this year is Youthberg. Youthberg, with the new introduction of set 7, introduces Tempest. Tempest is a very powerful card, essentially imitating the old Stride Aura Geyser Doomed. Pretty much controls the board, allows you to generate hand advantage, and has a really good follow-up in Gust as well. Youthberg kind of imitates a better Overlord in a way. So it has rearguard pressure, it has Vanguard pressure, multiple Vanguard attacks, and essentially the deck is free advantage. You know, you're capitalizing on your Maples, your Wayward Angel, your Sequanas allow you to increase or decrease back to 1 drive, and pretty much this deck is very, very good. We see it have a huge representation in Japanese, and this is no different from the English format. So with that being said, Youthberg is definitely one of the decks that you need to test against for Worlds, and if you are watching the World Finals, look out for this deck. This deck is going to be quite common on the Worlds stream. The second deck that you need to prepare for if you are going to Worlds for Standard is Eva. Eva, with the introduction of the promo, has seen a huge rise and actually converted very well in the later season of BCS. Eva does everything that it wants, everything that every other deck wants, very consistently. The only problem with Eva is that it has a very weak early game, but the longer the game goes, the stronger the deck becomes. It has ways to have early game advantage in Combine Rusher. You're able to set an order, count +1, call out a Combine Rusher, and then attack for 2 lines. And the deck itself also has its own control method. So it has its grade 2 order to get rid of some of the units that are on the field that are a little bit pesky. You need to kind of get rid of them. This is the order that you need to use. And essentially, it allows you to search the deck for certain cards, top 3, top 4, top X, depending on how many orders you have set in the order zone. So essentially, as the game progresses, your deck actually gets compressed and the likelihood of you hitting triggers gets higher. So yes, Eva is definitely one of the decks to look out for Worlds. Now, obviously with the introduction of Youthberg, a lot of the players kind of go away from Eva, transitioning to Youthberg, but there are players out there who have qualified for Worlds with Eva and they want to stick with the deck that they qualified, and it is a common case. And I know this because there's a lot of people who have qualified in the previous World formats and they just stick with the deck that they qualified with. So yeah, Eva is definitely a deck to look out for, so make sure you test this towards Worlds. The next deck, Leticia. I've been playing this deck very, very often at locals. After Joshua Lee won with it in Singapore, this deck is very, very strong. There is a little bit of, you know, a few conditions to ensure that this game plan gets rolling, but pretty much once it gets rolling, it's hard to stop. Leticia in itself, with its grade 2 support Nostria, is able to compress the deck very, very well, and essentially this deck imitates Buff Sagra in a way that the Blitz order that it uses provides a 15k shield and allows you to draw 1 as long as you have 4 or more curse play cards in the soul. So this deck alone essentially means that 1 attack on your opponent's side is essentially negated. Obviously, you know, you still have access to Elementaria Sanctitude, but in the cases where you don't have it and you have grade 1 nulls instead, it is very useful to start using your Blitz orders as 15k shields. And it's not restricted to, you know, later parts in the game. It is available as of the first turn because it is a grade 1 order. So this deck is very, very strong in combination with its second order. So the second normal order allows you to call any card from Soul to rearguard and give it +5. So the importance of this card is that it allows you to rush early while also being able to generate advantage in hand. Because if you combo it with the most expensive card in Lyrical Set 3, which is Yuika, let's just say you soul charge a trigger, you place the trigger in the front row, it gets +10, you put the Yuika at the back, that's 18, and pretty much you bounce that trigger back to hand. And the advantage of that is that you can start trading your normal orders for 15k shield worth of guard. So the shield value of this deck is actually very strong. Another good point to note is that they have on hit. So what that means is that because you're boosting your Vanguard in the early game, it makes, numbers like 16, maybe 16, 14. You can't just throw a 15k shield for a no break. So very likely your opponent is able to just, no guard the middle column, which means that it procs Aura. And the best thing about Aura is that not only does it search your curse play cards, it can also search your Elementaria Sanctitude. So in combination with all of these components together, it makes this deck very, very strong. It has a huge beat stick in Nostra, essentially a 25k base grade 2. It also has the other grade 2 Ludovine, which essentially becomes a 20k beater. This deck actually hits massive numbers. Yuika itself is a 13k, well actually 8k, giving the 5k to the front. There's actually a lot of power and it actually imitates Youthberg very, very much. The only difference is that this deck has beefier rearguards than Youthberg does. So you can see the comparisons between these two decks. So if you're testing for Worlds, this is actually a better Youthberg in a way. So make sure you are testing this deck. I think this deck is very, very strong in the standard format at the moment. We don't have Jet yet. We don't have Ebisu because I don't think Monster Strike is coming over to English. But yeah, Leticia is one of the best decks in standard at the moment and it is definitely a deck that if I were to play standard Worlds, I'd be bringing this deck. The next one, Flagberg, everyone's favorite. It has the support from set 7 in Arix. Arix is a very strong attack extender, allows you to fulfill your 5 attack requirement very, very easily. You now don't have to worry too much on Ascendant Assault or Inlet Pulse or Shelling Cannon. You now have a secondary or actually tertiary grade 2 that allows you to do that. The deck does what it does. Sometimes, you hit your 5 attacks and you attack and you hit a bunch of crits because your opponent's gonna no guard the Vanguard anyways. So that gives you like a window for you to be able to, punch through, make sure that they're essentially dead because the guard 3 is actually troublesome. The only problem with this deck though is that there are a lot of decks out there which generate a lot of hand. So the guard 3 actually isn't that much of a problem for some decks. And as well, the Elementaria Sanctitude actually bypasses the guard restricts. So obviously people who are bringing Flagberg are well aware of all of these, things or factors that are affecting the deck in a way. But I still think this deck, a lot of people will be bringing it because it's just a very, very solid deck. And yeah, Shelling Cannon being a 6 attack means that you can attack with your Vanguard first, dump a bunch of triggers, and yeah, your last attack is actually pretty beefy. And then the last deck, Gravidia. Now, I know a lot of people are probably wondering, why are you not putting Overlord here? Why are you not putting X deck here? The reason is that I made it the same case with the Eva case, is that there are actually a lot of people who qualified with Gravidia and want to just continue bringing Gravidia to Worlds. Gravidia is not a bad deck. There are probably better decks out there to play, but the thing is that we're talking about the representation at Worlds. So Gravidia in itself is probably a deck that you will see in the Swiss rounds. Whether or not it's going to end up in the top tables, it probably will. The deck itself can still, randomly win, hit OT, hit a bunch of crits on a Blast 5 Meteor, and it still puts in the work. It's still a scary deck. The deck didn't really change, but it never needed to change because it was so impactful already. So obviously, if you are caught off guard by Gravidia, you can still lose to this deck. and I still think the deck is very, very good. Obviously, in the JP side, we see a decline in it because there are other decks that are being played, but the decks that are in those team tournaments, some teams actually bring Gravidia. So I do think that this deck is one of the top 5 decks to look out for at Worlds. And if you're watching the Worlds chain, you probably will see 1 or 2 of these for the standard format. And that is pretty much it for the top 5 standard decks. There are some other honorable mentions. Like I said, Overlord is one of them. There are still others like Zorga. I know a few Zorga players are bringing Zorga to Worlds as well. But yeah, those are the few notables that I'm gonna put out there. But yeah, if you guys found this interesting, let me know down in the comments what deck you're expecting to see at Standard Worlds this upcoming weekend. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be super amazing getting to see multiple different people from around the world, getting to see, you know, old faces again. It's gonna be super fun. If you guys like this video, hit a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.